feel that necessarily, and we likely all can think of a story maybe from this morning when you weren't treated well, or through the school year. Maybe some of you kids, you're glad to be out of school because maybe some of the yucky stuff that happens at school isn't going to happen. We all have these things that happen to us that make us feel smaller. Now, some of the Kidsbridge kids have heard me tell this story, so forgive me for repeating, but it's kind of my classic rejection story. So anyway, when I was the youngest of 5 kids, and the bottom 3, we often had a lot of adventures together. One of those adventures was to go bike riding, but we had the problem that there were 3 of us and 2 bikes. So in those days, you did a lot of riding double, right? Likely a lot of you adults did riding double when you were a kid. So that's what we would do. My sister, who was the oldest of the 3, would go ahead. No, she was with me, actually. My brother would go ahead, and then my sister, and then I was on the back of that bike. So we'd get ready for this adventure. My mom would pack us some sandwiches, and we'd have that knapsack. We had a canteen that my grandpa had had in the war. It was so cold, or so neat, cool to have this canteen with water in it. And off we would go on our adventure. And my mom, the sink was, there was a window right in front of our sink in our farmhouse, so she would kind of watch us as we're going out the lane. And so what would happen is I would be on the back of my sister's bike, and she'd be pedaling, and my brother's ahead in his bike, and we'd get to the end of the lane, and what my sister said to me was, "Okay, get off and run, you little suck." That's what she said to me. So yeah, that made me feel really good. But in those times, you know, we've got 2 choices, right? I can run back and tattle to mom, but then you're even smaller in your brother and sister's eyes, right? Or I can run. So I chose the latter because I really wanted to be with them. So they would bike, and you know, they went down this road that was between 2 fields, and we wanted to explore. So they bike, and I get there, and they're sitting down eating the sandwiches, and they maybe gave me time to eat. I don't totally remember, but I remember there wasn't much time before it's time to head back. So they bike back, but of course they're waiting at the end of the lane, right? Because they can't drive by that window without me on the bike, or they're going to be in trouble. So I get back to them and get to the end of the lane and, you know, get on now, you little sock kind of thing. And I get on the back of the bike and we ride in, and mom thinks all is well and good. But those types of things, we all have things like that that happen. Now, fortunately for me, I did have a sister that treated me like that a fair bit. But overall, in my big picture of family, I did feel pretty loved and accepted. So fortunately, I don't think I bear too many scars. But I do know there are insecurities for myself, and I would bet for all of us that come from things that have happened when we're young. And for you guys that are young, some things that are happening now, and that's part of why we're having today, is so that maybe those things won't become scars. They will be things that get flipped around because you guys are learning the truth now that some of your parents or adults didn't learn until they were later and were able to flip around God's truth. And so I'm thinking that if this was Kidsbridge, and it kind of is today, we usually need someone to help us out with things. So usually Mr. Keith is pretty gracious, and he comes often and helps us out with things. So, woohoo, there's Mr. Keith. You don't mind wearing a Target jacket, do you? That's good. Good for you. You're such a good volunteer all the time. We're going to play a game called Stick to the Truth, and I have some volunteers. I think I need Tobias and Emily and Isaiah, and they're going to come up and you know what, when we hear those things like you suck or different things like that, or you're stupid, we can start to wear those things that we hear. They kind of become part of us, and they kind of stick to us. And so what these guys are going to help us is they've got, well, I've got some too, I guess. We've got some balls here that kind of represent mean things we might say, like, you stink.
What?
And when we say those things, if we don't recognize them as a lie, they stay on there and they stick to us. So these guys are going to help us. We're going to say 1, 2, 3, and then you stink, right? Because sometimes people say mean things, and we're going to see if they stick to Mr. Keith, or what happens when we say these bad things to people, these kind of mean things. Are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
You stink.
What?
Your hair makes you look old.
What?
You stink. I can't believe you wore those shoes.
What?
Oh,
Leave yourself.
Ugly.
Oh, no.
No.
Boring.
Boring?
Oh, no.
I don't like your clothes.
What? No.
Oh, Mr. Keith, thanks, guys. All those things they said kind of stuck to you.
It hurts.
You're not feeling very happy right now because you kind of were believing the things they said, it seems.
You didn't tell me this was going to happen.
Well, I know. Doesn't feel very good to have all those lies come at us, does it?
No.
No, it sure doesn't. Well, you know what? I know a guy that was...
Laughing at me.
I know. It's not nice when that happens. You know what? I know a guy, he didn't have balls that were going on him, but he had stickers.
Ouch.
And when people would say things like, your hair makes you look old, which
What?
it doesn't. But when they said things like that, he believed it, and the thing stuck to him. Now, he's an imaginary person, but...
I'm not.
No, I know. It really is really hurtful for you. But this imaginary guy named Punchinello, he actually learned some really important things about what God thought about him.
That's the guy with the nose, the wooden head, and the...
No, not Pinocchio.
No.
This is a different guy. This is Punchinello.
Okay.
But Miss Candace is going to come, and she's going to actually read us this story, and maybe we can learn how to not get so stinky with yucky words and stuff like that. No. Well, you have a seat, and we'll see if we can figure out a way to make things better. So here's Punchinello's story.
I'm going to stand over here because there are going to be pictures on the screen, so hopefully you can all see the pictures. The Wemmicks were small wooden people. All of the wooden people were carved by a woodworker named Eli. His workshop sat on a hill overlooking their village. Each Wemmick was different. Some had big noses, others had large eyes. Some were tall, and others were short. Some wore hats, others wore coats. But all were made by the same carver, and all lived in the village. And all day, every day, the Wemmicks did the same thing. They gave each other stickers. Each Wemmick had a box of golden star stickers and a box of gray dot stickers. Up and down the streets, all over the city, people spent their days sticking stars or dots on one another. The pretty ones, those with smooth wood and fine paint, always got stars. But if the wood was rough or the paint chipped, the Wemmicks gave dots. The talented ones got stars too. Some could lift big sticks high above their heads or jump over tall boxes. Still, others knew big words or could sing pretty songs. Everyone gave them stars. Some Wemmicks had stars all over them. Every time they got a star, it made them feel so good. It made them want to do something else and get another star. Others, though, could do little. They got dots. Punchinello was one of these. He tried to jump high like the others, but he always fell. And when he fell, the others would gather around and give him dots. Sometimes when he fell, his wood got scratched, so the people would give him more dots. Then, when he would try to explain why he fell, he would say something silly, and the Wemmicks would give him more dots. After a while, he had so many dots that he didn't want to go outside. He was afraid he would do something dumb, such as forget his hat or step in the water, and then people would give him another dot. In fact, he had so many gray dots that some people would come up and give him one for no reason at all. He deserves lots of dots, the wooden people would agree with one another. He's not a good wooden person. After a while, Punchinello believed them. I'm not a good Wemmick, he would say. The few times he went outside, he hung around with the other Wemmicks who had lots of dots. He felt better around them. One day he met a Wemmick who was unlike any he had ever met. She had no dots or stars. She was just wooden. Her name was Lucia. It wasn't that people didn't try to give her stickers. It's just that the stickers didn't stick. Some of the Wemmicks admired Lucia for having no dots, so they would run up and give her a star, but it would fall off. Others would look down on her for having no stars, so they would give her a dot, but it wouldn't stay either. That's the way I want to be, thought Punchinello. I don't want anyone's marks. So he asked the stickerless Wemmick how she did it. It's easy, Lucia replied. Every day I go and see Eli. Eli? Yes, Eli, the wood carver. I sit in the workshop with him. Why? Why don't you find out for yourself? Go up the hill. He's there. And with that, the Wemmick who had no stickers turned and skipped away. But will he want to see me? Punchinello cried out. Lucia didn't hear. So Punchinello went home. He sat near a window and watched the wooden people as they scurried around, giving each other stars and dots. It's not right, he muttered to himself, and he decided to go see Eli. He walked up the narrow path to the top of the hill and stepped into the big shop. His wooden eyes widened at the size of everything. The stool was as tall as he was. He had to stretch on his tiptoes to see the top of the workbench. A hammer was as long as his arm. Punchinello swallowed hard. I'm not staying here, and he turned to leave. Then he heard his name. Punchinello? The voice was deep and strong. Punchinello stopped. Punchinello, how good to see you! Come and let me have a look at you. Punchinello turned slowly and looked at the large bearded craftsman. You know my name? The little Wemmick asked. Of course I do. I made you. Eli stooped down and picked him up and set him on the bench. The maker spoke thoughtfully as he looked at the gray dots. Looks like you've been given some bad marks. I didn't mean to, Eli. I really tried hard. Oh, you don't have to defend yourself to me, child. I don't care what the other Wemmicks think. You don't? No, and you shouldn't either. Who are they to give you stars or dots? They're Wemmicks, just like you. What they think doesn't matter, Punchinello. All that matters is what I think. And I think you are pretty special. Punchinello laughed. Me? Special? Why? I can't walk fast. I can't jump. My paint is peeling. Why do I matter to you? Eli looked at Punchinello, put his hands on those small wooden shoulders, and spoke very slowly. Because you're mine. That's why you matter to me. Punchinello had never had anyone look at him this way, much less his maker. He didn't know what to say. Every day I've been hoping you'd come, Eli explained. I came because I met someone who had no marks, said Punchinello. I know. She told me about you. Why don't the stickers stay on her? The maker spoke softly. Because she has decided that what I think is more important than what they think. The stickers only stick if you let them. What? The stickers only stick if they matter to you. The more you trust my love, the less you care about the stickers. I'm not sure I understand. Eli smiled. You will, but it'll take time. You've got a lot of marks. For now, just come to see me every day and let me remind you how much I care. Eli lifted Punchinello off the bench and set him on the ground. Remember, Eli said as the Wemmick walked out the door, you are special because I made you, and I don't make mistakes. Punchinello didn't stop, but in his heart he thought, I think he really means it. And when he did, a dot fell to the ground.
Some pretty awesome truths in that, hey? So who is Kidsbridge Kids? Who is Eli representing in that book? Go for it. Isaiah. Jesus, God our creator. That Eli is representing, that was God who created Punchinello. So why would Punchinello believe what all these people who didn't make him said about him? And why do we believe the lies that other people who didn't create us believe about us? And so God says, don't believe those lies. Believe my truth. You are my workmanship. You are my masterpiece. I chose to create every single one of you. And I don't make junk. I make masterpieces. Masterpieces who are then ready to go out and do all the things I've got ready for them to do. So we might know it up here, but hopefully we're going to start to get that into our heart and be able to really live it out. And you know, some of us may think, well, you know what, I know that Jesus faced rejection and cruel words at his death, but do you think that as he was growing up, he faced any type of rejection or people saying mean things to him? Well, you know what, we're going to find out. This is a video that if we were doing Kidsbridge today, we would have been watching as part of our story, just so you can get a glimpse of what we look at. But it's another glimpse of what Jesus, this is the story from Luke 4. It's a story that she's going to tell you about whether or not Jesus was rejected.
I think those things are going to stick to me.
Why?
Well, you know, just listening to all this, you know what, I am God's masterpiece.
You are.
You know, and that word, masterpiece, I'm a piece of the master.
Woohoo! Well, that's kind of a neat way to think of it, too.
Get the kids back up here. Get them back up.
Okay. Well, Emily, Tobias, Isaiah, do we know where the
I have them right here.
you have them right there.
They all fell off.
Okay. Does anyone else want to, Taylor, Andrew, Michelle, do you want to get a chance to wing it, Mr. Keith? Okay. Okay.
Okay, here, just a second.
Okay.
Why do I have 4?
Oh, you're being so fair.
It
Good
doesn't
for you. I'll
matter.
take. Good for you. Tobias is being fair. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
we'll try the 1, 2, 3 stink thing again, and you know all those mean things that we could say, and let's see if they're going to stick. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You stink.
No,
we
I
don't
don't.
like. Well, we don't like your shoes.
Keep it coming.
Keep it coming.
These are very nice shoes.
You're boring.
Oh, I got it in your eye.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm not bad.
Wow. None of them stuck this
None of
time,
them
Mr.
stuck.
Keith.
I'm not weird.
We'll just leave them up here now. Thanks, guys. Wow. So why do you think they didn't stick?
Well, you know what, Julie?
What?
Just like it said in the video, I got flipped.
You got flipped.
I got flipped.
Wow.
I realized, you know what? It doesn't matter what those kids say to me.
Right.
You know what? I'm
Fearfully and
a
wonderfully
masterpiece.
made.
I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And you know what? Look, none of it
None of them stuck. So it really can be like Punchinello, and stickers don't stick when we don't believe the lies, right? But
That's
we believe
right.
God's truth about who we are.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. You're standing taller. You're more confident. Now you are much more free. He is taller than he was. And hot. It is hot in here. But you know what? We laugh, you guys, but it really comes down to such a choice of what are we going to believe? The lies that we are fed from other people or God's truth about who we are. And it has nothing to do with what we do. That Ephesians 2:10 passage comes after Paul is saying it's all about grace. We are saved because of grace. It's all about grace. It's nothing that we have done, but all about what God has done through us and how he has created us. Now, there are times when, I just want to clarify, kids, you know, you may get home and your parents might say, maybe you kick someone under the table, and they might say, that was mean what you just did. Now, was that a lie or is that truth? That might have been a true thing. There are times when people might speak correction into our life. And that's very different than someone speaking a lie into our life. And we may need to be able to listen to that. But hopefully, parents, we are speaking, and not parents, just to each other, that we are speaking truth into each other. So kids, can you look around who's beside you? And adults, just look at the person who's beside you and think, that is a masterpiece. That person is a masterpiece that God has created. So not only are there implications for how we perceive ourselves, but there's implications, there's things that happen with how we're going to treat other people. And you know, it was really neat last week, the grade 5s and 6s had a really neat opportunity that Mr. Chandi arranged for them. And where's my grade 5s, 6s? So who was there that went last week? Emily's here that went last week. Is there any other grade 5s and 6s that went to, Michelle is there and Hannah's here. Do any of you guys want to say what you did last Sunday? You want me to say? Last Sunday, they went to a church that does Sunday suppers in Halifax. It's called The Ark, and every Sunday night, that church feeds homeless people or people who are just not able to have a meal that day, who are poor. And so they spent about 3 hours on their feet serving other people. And it was really cool to see. And one of the things that impacted me the most was listening to one of the head volunteers talk to us about how to treat the people that were coming. And he talked about how they wanted to be different than a regular soup kitchen, which is a wonderful thing, but they said, we don't want them lining up for their food, we want to serve them at the tables. So they set up tables for about 200, is it, or so? They set up tables, and the kids helped set up tables, put things out there, and then we go to the tables and we would serve the people. And it was because they're saying they are masterpieces. We want to give dignity to people. And so they talked about when you talk to them, look them in the eye. And I just thought, what a wonderful thing, because when you don't have as much money, when you maybe don't even have a home, you're likely believing a ton of lies about your worth. And I just think it was cool that I think the kids went and elevated and told some of God's truth just by their actions. They said, you are worthy of my time. You are worthy of me taking a Sunday afternoon and serving you. So that was really cool. Anyway, hopefully we'll get to do that again, and maybe some other families and people will get to do that again. But I just thought, when we know that we are God's workmanship, that's not only about us. This life isn't about us, it's about serving others, but we are free to serve others. And we are free to put others first when we're confident in who we are. If I don't have to prove who I am, if I don't care what other people say, then I'm just free to pour my life into other people. Jesus was free to get on his mission and preach what he had to preach and do what he had to do, because he didn't care if people said you're not the Son of God. He knew he was the Son of God. He didn't have to prove it to anybody, because he knew he already was. So he could just do what he was meant to do. And that's what we can do, because we are God's children, his masterpieces. He loves us. And so we are free to be the people that he's called us to be. So we're just going to end with a song, unless there's anything else.
I'll just close after the song.
Okay, so we're going to end with